The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, Sample Chapter listeners. Welcome to episode 163 of the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Make sure to find and follow the show on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It is just the Sample Chapter Podcast on all of those locations. You can find all kinds of fun stuff that we're doing week in and week out. If social media is not your thing, but you'd like to reach out to the show, you can do so via email at samplechapterpodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave a voicemail by calling 660-851-1146. Oh my goodness, this week I have quite the treat for you, for us all really. For the first time ever, the show is going all the way to Egypt for epic fantasy author Tarek Badr. Tarek is such a great guest, such a gracious guest, and thankfully has a sense of humor, as I'm probably still butchering that last name, much like people do mine, but I think he's got me there. As far as last names go, I think he's got me. But it doesn't take away from the interview because he was so awesome to speak with. I mean, he has such a heart for writing and telling this story, his first novel, Chaos Storm. And let me tell you, seeing the book cover and reading a little bit about it, I still was like, oh, it's interesting. It's got me intrigued on what this is about. And then talking to him, oh man, I mean, he just really drew me in. And so I'm totally sold. I cannot wait to grab a copy of this for myself. And you're going to love this conversation. We are discussing the deciding factors into what made him leave a career in engineering and become an author. We also discuss matters of how often us writers are questioning ourselves and are we writing correctly? That feeling of reading a book that really moves you and inspires you in your life going forward. And we also talk about mysterious tattoos, which you're going to find out more about that here in just a little bit. And then when we get into his reading, it is an intimate and chilling reading. You're going to love it, and that is all coming up here in just one moment, so stay tuned for that. I can't wait to share it with you. But first, let me tell you about Scrivener, longtime sponsor who's been with the show. Scrivener writing software. It's no secret they are my favorite writing software. I do all of my writing in it, and right now, writing on a series as I am, it is invaluable having all that character information carried over from book to book and being able to add to it as needed. And you know what's neat? Just because I'm adding characters to book 2 or book 3, it's not changing what I did in book 1. It's so amazing. Everything is right there at your fingertips, all of my research, everything you need. Check out this quick commercial and find out how you can save 20% on the regular desktop version. Jason here. Hey, I wanted to take a moment and tell you about my favorite writing tool, Scrivener. Now, I know you've heard about Scrivener because their writing software has been embraced by hundreds of thousands of other writers like you and I, from the novice to best-selling novelists. The reason we all use it is because of Scrivener's core concept to bring all the writing tools you use together in a single application. And with tools like automatic backup, character maps, project goals, and let's not forget that amazing corkboard, you can see why I use Scrivener every day. As a bonus for Sample Chapter Podcast listeners, use code CHAPTER for 20% off your desktop version. Scrivener writing software, built by writers for writers. All right, yes indeed, Scrivener is where it's at. I also want to thank Audible. We are now a partner with Audible, providing for you a free 30-day trial. Once again, here's another commercial that can tell it to you a lot better than I can tell it. Hello friends, Jason here, and I wanted to take a moment to tell you about a great offer from Audible. Like you, I'm very busy. I have a full-time job, a family, I'm a thriller author, And I do this weekly podcast. But I also love to read. That's where Audible is a lifesaver for me. Whether I'm mowing the yard, working out, driving back and forth to work, or doing some other menial task, I can still listen to an incredible book through Audible. And now you can get a free 30-day trial by going to audibletrial.com/samplechapter. By doing that, you'll not only have that 30-day trial, you'll also gain access to guided wellness programs, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, exclusive Audible originals, and even podcasts like the Sample Chapter Podcast. Last year is the first time I ever achieved my own personal reading goals, and it was because of some wonderful titles I listened to on Audible. Some of those titles were Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline, narrated by Will Wheaton, the Awaken Online series from Travis Bagwell, narrated by David Stiefel, Patient Zero by Jonathan Mayberry, narrated by the incredible Ray Porter. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention previous guest Scott Meyer with his Magic 2.0 series, narrated by Luke Daniels. It's a lot of fun and definitely worth your time. Hey, full disclosure, by signing up at audibletrial.com/samplechapter, the show does get a little monetization, which goes directly towards any production needs with the show. So you're also helping us out here by signing up. So what are you waiting for? Head on over now to audibletrial.com/samplechapter and start your free 30-day trial today. And there you go. Click that link in the show notes for both Scrivener and for Audible, so that way you can get on over there, save yourself some money, and find some great Audible books. Speaking of Audible, something I just finished was Robert Heinlein's Time for the Stars, and that was fantastic. Just amazing. I was really blown away, and it was a quick, well, I want to say read, but it was on Audible. Amazing job. Really well done, and quite the book. That was my classic for February, that I try to read a classic every month, and that was this month's. So highly recommended. It was really, really good. Hey, I also want to invite you to check out our podcast network that we first became a part of almost 2 years ago, or about 2 years ago. Pop Goes the Culture Network, home to about a dozen other pop culture related shows, including that flagship show, Pop Goes the Culture. Hey, they are kicking off a March Madness type event where they're going to be deciding the best 90s movie, and I'm a part of it. I'm not actually in the discussions, so to speak. Maybe we'll work something like that out sometime, but you can check out live their episodes on Thursday nights. Click that link in the show notes to find out where you can go and listen to the episodes live, and make sure, again, pay attention to the social media and follow them there as well, because that's where you can vote for the favorite 90s movie. Mine was, honestly, I had a different movie in mind for my number one, but a very close second that I went with was The Fifth Element, because, oh my gosh, that movie never gets old. It never gets old, and it's amazing. So if you're like me and you love The Fifth Element, make sure you're following not just the Sample Chapter Podcast on social media, but also Pop Goes the Culture, and you can find that through my likes on there. And that way you can look for the upcoming polls, and whenever you see Fifth Element in the running, then you can vote for it, and vote for Sample Chapter for the win. Man. But make sure you check out some of their other shows as well, and you won't regret it. It's lots of fun stuff over there. If you like pop culture, you're going to find something there that you're going to love. Finally, I want to thank Project Entertainment Network. I've been with them for about a year now. But I've been a long-time listener of the network. I've been following that network for maybe 4 or 5 years. Armand Rosamilia is the head of that network, and he's been a guest on this show several times. So many good shows on that network. Whether you are an author, you're looking for writing inspiration or instruction, whether you're a book lover looking for reviews, whether you like shows about opinions over this or that, monster movies, the list goes on and on and on. There are so many different shows on that network, so click that link in the show notes to find one, or check out this one right here.
Hello, podcast addicts and curious listeners. Dr. Galvanic's Odd Tales is a narrated podcast with dark, thrilling and mysterious stories. In each episode, Dr. Galvanic's Odd Tales will take you through the mysteries of the Australian outback, lead you into a remote corner of the galaxy, or it will accompany you through a mind-bending nightmare. You can find Dr. Galvanic's Odd Tales on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Subscribe to the show so you won't miss another episode. See you out there.
Yes, indeed, another one of those fantastic shows over on Project Entertainment. Like I said, click that link in the show notes for that, and you can find yourself a huge selection of shows to check out. Well, hey, without further ado, let's get us on over to our interview with Cairo native and epic fantasy author, Tarek Badr. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast. This week, I'm so excited. And I say excited an awful lot. I know I need to find a new catchphrase, but I am truly excited. The show is jumping over to Cairo, Egypt for the first time ever, where we are going to be talking with Tarek Badr. Tarek's lifetime love for reading fiction and fantasy novels inspired him to begin writing his debut novel, Chaos Storm. He left a career of engineering behind him when he could no longer ignore his passion for writing. As I said, he is from Cairo, Egypt, where the country's rich history fuels the fires of his imagination. Welcome to the show, Tarek.
Hello, Jason. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so glad we were able to connect online. And my goodness, just how are you doing? Let's start there.
I'm doing fine. The weather is really freaking out right here. Like for the past couple of days, it was really hot. Then suddenly it rained and flooded my roof, and I had to deal with that. So yeah, it's crazy right now. I hear it's snowing over there in the U.S. Are you one of the people hit by the storm?
We had a little bit of snow yesterday, but it didn't stick around where I am. I'm near Kansas City, Missouri, so like in the middle of America. And it didn't stick around. It didn't stay here, but the winds are bringing in cold temperatures. And like today, I think we've got like a high of 25, and all next week will be around 10 for the high. We're bracing for some really cold weather and some snow in between every couple days.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Kentucky, and a while back he shared a picture with me that is basically white, everything covered in snow. And I was like, I did not even know that it snowed in Kentucky. That was a learning experience for me. I thought that was a hot zone. Like, where did all the snow come from?
Yeah, I think that Kentucky is like right there in that border where they can still get some snow here and there. And even the southern states, I think, will still get some snow occasionally, but it's very rare.
Yeah, I just love that stuff because it's always, like a good, oh my God, I didn't know that like note to self, keep it, in the pocket for a story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Future anecdote or something like that.
And it's easy for us here in America to forget that the weather will be different on the other side of the world. I had a year or two ago, I think 2 years ago, an author in New Zealand or I think it was Australia, and it's summer there while I'm freezing here, and they're having a heat wave at the time, and he was telling me how he had to turn off his air conditioner for the sound for the interview, and so he was sweating, and it was like 100 and 106.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, and I'm in my garage studio where it was at the time I'd forgotten to turn on my space heater, and so it was like 48 in my garage, and I was like, oh, that's great. All right, well, I'll send cool thoughts to you, and you send me warm thoughts, and we'll
yeah, well, Egypt has mostly moderate weather throughout the year, but it has like really hot summers. So if you're really into the sun and tanning and that kind of stuff, welcome to Egypt, because you got a lot of sun for a long time.
Oh gosh, that's great. Well, give us a little bit of your background. I know you had a career in engineering and a lifelong love for reading, but how did you get to the point where you decided I want to write?
All right. I remember exactly when I made that decision. Since I've been a little kid, I've always loved reading books and stories. I'm a fan of stories. I just love everything that is story form. But it never really translated into I want to write a story until I think I was somewhere between 20 or 21 or something like that. And my cousin, God rest his soul, he gave me a book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Now, anybody listening who might have read this book, I guess depending on how old were you when you read this book, if you read it, you might have decided it's a great book or it's a really cliched book. But for me back then, I was like, oh my God, I've never read anything like that. And I remember very clearly that the moment the book ended and the feeling I had with the ending, if I don't know if you've read it, but the ending was really different. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. This feeling right now that I'm having because of this book is amazing. And I want to do that again. And I want to be the one that's doing it. I want to be the one that's writing these books. I love stories, and now I think I want to tell stories.
Oh, wow.
So that was exactly that. I was in a car. I remember I was not driving, but I was, sitting in the passenger seat. I was reading the book, and I finished it, and I had this moment, and I remember very clearly that I opened the first page and I started over again. So rereading the book. Okay, I need to do this again, and that was kind of like the kickoff. And the way it happened for me is Egypt is obviously a different environment, from a lot of, countries. Like, it's not like America, where if you're 21 or 20 in America and you think, I want to be a writer. Now, it's not a very safe choice for you to make, but it's a valid choice. Okay. Like you can, there is avenues, the night schools, you can, try to go to writing, become one of the writing workshops in a TV show or something like that. In Egypt, there's nothing. Like, it's impossible. To begin on a 20-year-old and say, all right, I'm going to throw everything away and start becoming a writer, it's very difficult to do that. Everybody's got to get a 9 to 5 job, and I had to get one as well. So I got one, and I became a systems engineer. I was really good at it as well, but in the meantime, I was like, okay, this is a temporary thing until I become a good writer. And here is where the perfectionist or the quality oriented part of me actually delayed the process, because I eventually started writing down ideas and notebooks. Every writer has done that. You can get a notebook, start scribbling. And then I'm like, okay, this is the one. I have inspiration right now. I have this image really vivid. I'm going to write this chapter. And I sit down and write a chapter, and I really like it. But then I stop and I'm like, I don't know if I did this correctly. Like, I don't know if the formatting is right. I don't know if this is the way you write dialogue. I don't know where I'm supposed to go next. And okay, so I need to learn this now and enter the rabbit hole. I started learning everything there is to learn about writing. I started signing up for online classes. I remember in one purchase, I bought about 15 books off of Amazon. All the greatest books about teaching writing. Like, think of any book that people recommend. Stephen King's on writing, I had it. John Truby's got it. Story by Robert McKee, have it. All of these, I have all of these books. I even have some very obscure books about teaching writing. And I started studying and doing this. And meanwhile, I'm stuck in the engineering job. And I, 8 years later, I am in my job and I'm having a fight with my boss, and it seems obvious that this fight is going to end up with either I quit or he's going to fire me, obviously. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I hate it. I hate this job. Doesn't matter that I'm good at it. Doesn't matter that it pays 5 figures. That all that is crap. Because I'm not happy. I'm not enjoying my life. I'm not enjoying who I am doing this. So I'm just going to stop doing it. I'm just going to go be a full-time writer. I'm going to spend my time writing my book and teaching people how to write their own books, because I've actually been doing that a little bit, on the side for about 2 years before I quit my job. And I did. I quit and I said, all right, everything I've wrote before, because I've written tons of stuff before that point, but I said, everything I've written before is just for me. It's no longer what I'm going to show the world. I'm going to start from scratch. And I created Chaos Storm, the first book I decided I'm going to publish.
Wow.
And that's basically how I got to this point.
Now, did you have any pushback from family or friends saying like, no, Tariq, you can't just do that?
Holy God, obviously. You got so much pushback. I actually I was in a relationship. I broke up with my girlfriend over this because for her, this was okay. You're completely ruining the future of this relationship by making this choice. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to find myself. And she's nah, and it didn't work out. But yeah, I had pushback from my family, from my friends, everybody. To them, this is career suicide. I mean, how do you go from being a systems engineer that has implemented project in 6 countries, has lived in 4 countries, and is making 5 figures, to a writer that makes nothing, absolutely nothing, and
Mhm.
now you're gonna start from scratch? I'm like, okay, don't worry, I'm gonna be making this very tiny amount out of teaching other people, because I'm doing like tiny workshops, one-on-one coaching, and that kind of stuff, and then I'm selling these copies, and on and on. It's a grind, obviously, but it's totally worth it. It's absolutely worth it for me, at least. It's a sacrifice that I choose to make and accept. I'm not saying that it's for everyone. If anyone right here is listening who has a similar passion and who has a similar, inclination, I would tell you that the right way to do this, in my point of view, is to do your job in the morning and write at night. Keep doing both until you can comfortably say, I am good enough and successful enough of a writer that I don't need to do the 9 to 5 anymore. That is the correct way to do it. I was unfortunately unable to do that. And so I chose this, all right, it's me and it's this passion, and it's either this or nothing. So I'm going to go for it. It is the
Uh,
only way that worked for me.
well, and there's the old adage too that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And it sounds like you have found that peace and that love. And gosh, man, more power to you. That's fantastic that you took such a leap and that you're following that dream.
Thank you. Thank you. And not to be all sunshines and roses, there a lot of the process is a grind. There are days when like, this is definitely a job. But there are days when, no, I love this. I'm enjoying this. You know them. If you finished a book, there's scenes in there where you're like, I need to kill this guy, and just to end this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it would be so much easier if I just kill him and cut out the next 3 chapters, and that would be awesome. But yeah, I'll just have to do it. Let's do it. Let's grind, because there is a super awesome scene, that is coming. If you get through this, you get to the Avengers Assemble moment. But
Hmm.
you can't do the Avengers Assemble moment if you don't do everything that comes before it. So
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, and people forget about that. That was a long time coming before they finally reached that point.
yeah,
Uh,
26 movies or 23 movies or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it was 23 movies. I
yeah.
believe so.
A lot of work went into setting up each one of them so that they could finally assemble. And so many times as writers, we want to like, no, I want to assemble now. What do I
Isn't
do?
that exactly what DC did? That's exactly what the DC Comics movies decided to do. They're like, okay, um, we're not gonna do origin stories. We're not gonna fix a proper storyline. We're just gonna do Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League,
Hmm.
and they got Man of Steel, which is good. I like it. BVS,
Yeah.
really bad. It sucks. It's a terrible movie.
Yes.
And then you got into Justice League, which is a freaking disaster. And now they're gonna do the Snyder cut on, more. We'll see how that turns out. It's a 4-hour movie, so
Oh gosh, I know.
I'm really skeptical, because any movie that has to be told in a 4 hours, like, what are you told? What are you doing? Come on. Like, even Lord of the Rings was like 3 hours. What the hell?
Going back a little bit here, you were talking about The Alchemist and how that influenced you. What other books influenced you?
Oh, okay. I read Lord of the Rings once a year.
Mm,
Yeah, I've done this for the past, I think, 10 years. I read Harry Potter, the entire series, once a year.
okay.
I don't know exactly how long I've been doing that, but I know that I've been doing it for quite a while. Um, okay, so I'm obviously a fantasy guy. So I am the fantasy fiction for me is the greatest kind of fiction. Since I fell in love with Lord of the Rings, I'm like, is there anything else like this out there? And yeah, it turns out there's an entire genre. Okay, so let's read more of that.
Hmm.
And here's what I noticed. There's kind of in the books when you're like a really new reader to any genre and you pick up anything, it's like, okay, this is so good. But then you pick up four more books and you're actually that first one was not that good in comparison to these because you start building up your knowledge of the genre, your vocabulary, your standards are raised, and you're like, okay, this wasn't actually that good. And I notice a trend where there are people that are leaning very much towards the Tolkien kind of end of the spectrum, very classical,
Hmm.
very um unoriginal. They're like kind of imitators to Tolkien. And on the other side of the spectrum, there are people who like try to disengage themselves from Tolkien as much as they can to the point where I can't tell if it's actually fantasy. You know, the only reason it's a fantasy is because something unusual is happening, you know. They start to take all the tropes and turn them over their heads, and they're very contemporary or postmodern in their attitude. And I didn't like both. You know, I wanted something in between. Come on, guys. I'm sure there's a middle ground where you can use the good stuff, the really good stuff, because the classics were classics for a reason.
Hmm.
And the moderns are really good because they have new ideas. But come on, you don't have to drop everything and go into this mad new rush where all the books are looking the same. So I tried to merge both of them and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the stuff that I like from all over this genre and from other movies and from sci-fi and see what are the elements that I really enjoy and how can I reconcile them into one book. You know, also, by the way, yeah, influence Star Wars. I completely influenced. I'm fully in love original trilogy. Like I grew up watching Luke Skywalker. So yeah, then watching The Mandalorian, I lost my mind. Absolutely.
Yep.
I, oh my God, what am I watching? This is so good. But yeah, so this is the that was kind of the thought process, you know. So I'll give you a quick example. Like everybody knows who Brandon Sanderson is,
Yeah.
and he's the greatest fantasy writer right now, in my point of view. I'm a huge fan of him. But one of the things that I'm not really a huge fan of him is when he writes magic, he goes in what we call the hard magic system. Like everything's very scientifically explained. You can reproduce it, you can do it. Everything is there's rules for everything that he does. This is the term that he uses, hard magic system,
Hmm.
as opposed to the soft magic system of something like Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf is basically Gandalf. You don't know what he can do. No one knows what he can do. All we know is that he can do what he needs to do. There is an awe in the magic of Gandalf. You know, if you look at the magic of Harry Potter, yes, it has rules, yes, it has parameter, but a lot of it is still mystical. It's still weird. It's still magic. So I don't like the full-on hard magic system, but I don't like the magic that is just the writer doing whatever he wants to do to get out of trouble. And so
Right.
again, in this book, Chaos Storm, I try to mix and match where my magic system has elements of the hard magic system. Okay, I understand it. I understand how it reproduces it. I understand how it works. I get some rules, but oh my, I don't know how this is happening. There are elements of it that seem mystical, that seem unexplainable, and I love that. This is one of the, examples of how I was influenced by different genres.
That's fantastic. And I love how you said Star Wars was an inspiration too, because people tend to forget how closely tied sci-fi and fantasy can be, and that Star Wars is a really it's a fantasy.
Yeah, it is a mythical fantasy. It's not really. I don't think Star Wars can classify as sci-fi at all. It's
Right.
just a mythology and a fantasy that takes place in the outer space. The Force is magic. It's a soft magic system. It's not exactly explained how everything about it works, but there are some explanations. How does it manifest? You don't know. who can get it? You don't know. This guy is just force sensitive, but it's mystical. A lot of people forget that when the OG trilogies came out, the force was not just this something that they're using. Like the Jedi were not just knights. No, they were actually, this is actually a religion.
Yeah.
Like in the first movie, it's clearly mentioned that this is a religion. These guys worship a certain way, and they live a certain way, and the force is connected to that. So their connection to the force is not just about gaining power to defend or whatever, but is also something mystical and spiritual. That is pure fantasy. Absolutely. There is no sci-fi elements here at all. But if you go to Star Trek, where, okay, we'll do the warp drive because of the quantum leap so that we can do the wormhole and the Einstein. Yeah, okay, that's science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what you're doing is exactly what I'm doing. Is in the sense you read another book and you're getting inspired by a specific dynamic. I think this is the really big reason between being inspired and being and plagiarism really is you're inspired by a specific dynamic. Like you read Lord of the Rings and you say, oh, I love the relationship between the Fellowship members, and I really want to write a book that has this dynamic. And then you take that idea, but instead of doing it in a Middle Earth kind of setting where they have to destroy the ring and they're all honorable and polite, no, okay, I'm gonna make them all rowdy, rude, cussing all the time, and I'm gonna shove them on a pirate ship. That's basically Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
The camaraderie, the fellowship, but in a completely different way. And you take that one element and you build around it all your story world, and it fits, it works.
I love it. So now, how did Chaos Storm come to be? Where was this the genesis behind this idea?
Oh, okay. So you're not going to believe this, but remember when I said in the beginning that I sat down and I wrote like a piece of chapter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, I don't know how to make this even better. So this chapter has been in my mind for almost 10 years, where I'm thinking about this whole world, where I am telling a story of the end of times of this world. It's the battles and the state of the world before the end of time. And then when I leave work, I decide, okay, I'm going to write my first book. I say, okay, I don't want to go there yet because this is a huge project. It's a really big project. And I don't want to tackle that for my first book. I want my first book to be something similar, simple, one point of view character, not going to jump around a lot, to make it easier for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I come up with the idea of a city that is protected by a pyramid, and there are, evil outside. It was very vague in my head. And I was trying to make it cool, and I keep going left and right. It's not working until I remember one detail that in the world of my chapter, that one story, one of my characters is talking about the South and about the fact that they see ruins of pyramids in the South. And then it goes like, oh my God, what if the story about this pyramid is kind of like a prologue? What if it's the prequel to the story I'm going to tell? Just thousands of years before the story that I wrote 10 years ago starts, Chaos Storm happens. And thus, it began. And then a completely new outline began where I am now mapping the end of the world through these signs. And it's not clearly stated in the first book, so this is kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but I give it freely that in this world there is a certain character that at some point is going to talk about having seen the end of the world and having seen the signs of the end. And he wrote down these signs, and the first sign is the Chaos Storm.
Wow. And I love the not just the inspiration, but the way the story's coming together in the background whenever you're doing other things. And I love that moment of the aha moment for myself as well. Whenever you're, I'm spending weeks or months or years trying to think of this one story and how is it going to work, and it's funny how You can be in the middle of some mindless activity doing something completely different, and all of a sudden it comes to you.
I was in the pool. I was swimming. And as I was swimming, I was thinking about this over and over again. I'm trying to get you because this is one of the best exercises you can think. I don't remember who exactly taught me this. I think it was Robert McKee, but it could have been John Truby, one of them. He said, you always need to ask the what if. So, what if outside of the parameters of the city there are aliens? And what if it's not aliens? What if they're monsters? What if they're dinosaurs? What if this? Okay, what if it's other humans but they're bad? Okay, what if it's other humans but it's not bad? You keep asking what if, what if, what if, what if. You look at every possible. This is where your creative mind is sorely needed. Use your creativity and your openness to, because the first idea is almost always a ripoff of someone else's work. Almost always.
Sure.
Because the subconscious just say, hey, how about this good idea? And you start working on it, and I'm writing Star Wars, am I? Okay. And yeah, you just realize that. So you keep asking what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, and then eventually you get to that point where okay, and then you start studying it from different angles. So in this case, for example, I'm like, what is cool about this build? Okay, what is cool about this build is that the story of the main character in Chaos Storm Art is going to end in book 2, Broken Stars, which is I'm currently working on now, hopefully to be released by the end of the years. Broken Stars. What is good about it is I can do a shift of hundreds of years and pick up later in the same world after everything have changed. So it's the same story, but it's a different environment. And it's a different culture, and it's a different people. Everything is different. It's like a completely new novel, but built into the same world. Now it has a legacy where, okay, maybe these characters don't know about the events of Chaos Storm and Broken Stars, but they live in the same world and keep building up. So that way you can have a story that could eventually, when it's overspan hundreds or maybe thousands of years, from beginning to end, and they're all unique and individual in a sense.
Oh my goodness, this is fantastic.
Thank you.
I love hearing all the amazing ideas that's going into this, and the incredible series that it sounds like you are building. Do you have an idea yet on how long you might take this series?
Well, yeah, one of the cool things about the way I'm structuring this is I can end it with book 2. Like the story of Art is going to be over by the end of book 2. So that could be it. I could say, all right, I'm done. Thank you. The story is completely fulfilled. You know what happens, you know how it ends. The conflict is over, and I don't need to go over. But I can keep going. So right now it fluctuates in my mind between it could be anywhere between 5 and 10.
Oh wow. Okay. Now there's something here that's in the byline for the book, and I don't know if this is going to be spoilery or not, but I'm interested in the hide your tattoos line. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, so this is in the first chapter, so it's not really a spoiler, but in the beginning of the first chapter, the character Art is living in a very destitute place called Scorn, and he has 2 tattoos on his back. He's got a red pyramid on his left shoulder, and he's got what we call a roamer tattoo. That is a tattoo of a golden red phoenix, and it moves. It moves around his body, moves around his arm, and this is a sign of exceptional wealth. Is something that is extremely difficult to attain and very expensive to have. And it doesn't make sense at all for a boy living in the poorest, worst place in the entire world to have. And so he's hiding it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, there you go, and that's that's enough to, I think, make people want to know more about this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't want to draw
Fantastic.
too much into it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
have to
gosh.
read and find out, read what's up with the Red Pyramid and what's up with in the prologue, which I'm gonna read, there's a few hints at where he comes from and okay, what might be happening. But yeah, it's the book is basically a journey. It's a journey of self discovery. It's a journey of trying to achieve. I wouldn't say greatness, but trying to become who he was born to be. Trying to find his place into the world and motivated by love, mostly motivated by I want to save people. I want to love. I want to save the ones I love, and it's motivated by multitude of desires. The desire to be someone instead of just being this little boy who lives in scorn and collects rocks. There's a lot of it, and there's a lot of, I think, interesting characters that or at least try to make them interesting. The audience will be the judge of that, who are very different and they have different motivations for the reason they do what they do. And yeah, we follow the journey from as they cross a very large strip of land, and they have to go through so much adversary. The forces of antagonism in this book is, I try to make them astronomically high to make the struggle as difficult as it can be. I'm really mean to my characters, so
Oh my gosh. How is book 2 coming along for you?
I am about 50% done. It was supposed to be out, to be honest. I don't want to sugarcoat this, but it was supposed to be honest. But in 2020, unfortunately, was very unkind to me. In the beginning of the year, I had a medical issue that warranted surgery, and that was a very difficult time for me. And following that, I had a rut of being unable to write, and then obviously the COVID hit, and with it the quarantine. And I am a very extroverted kind of person. I had this routine where I would wake up every day and would leave the house and go to a specific spot and sit down and read. And I'm sorry. And that routine was completely disrupted.
Hmm.
And so the mental stress from the surgery and the quarantine and all that kind of stuff, and then yeah, life was really difficult in 20. I'm not saying that obviously I'm the only one who had that. Everybody had it tough, but life was difficult for me, and it slowed down the process. But I have made really good headway. I would say I'm more than 50% in, and I'm very satisfied with how it's turning out, because I made a completely different leap. In the first book, it's one protagonist, the main character Art. But in the second book, now that we know who these people are, now we're more familiar with the world, I'm showing you points of view from different characters. Now we get to see the motivations of other characters. Now we get to see the struggle on a different scale, where everybody wants to do something and the forces are kind of aligning with or against each other. Yeah, and there's a lot I can't really talk about until you finish the book. so, so I would say I'm more than 50% over the I'm over the 50% mark, and I am hoping that by the end of this year it would be out. Hopefully sooner, but yeah, that's my deadline.
Fantastic. Well, you got to let us know when that book is at least available for pre-order, so that way, or if you do a pre-order for it, or whenever it comes available, regardless, you got to let us know so that we can let listeners know that it's available, and help spread the word about it. Where can people
Absolutely.
find and follow you?
Well, okay. If you're on Clubhouse, you can follow me on, at Tarek Badr, which is at TarekBadr. If you are on Instagram, it's exactly the same, at TarekBadr85. That's the exact same handle I have on Twitter. And I also exist on, Facebook, and I have a website. So I'm pretty everywhere. So very, very easy to reach.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we'll have a link for all of that, the social media and the website, and the Amazon link, all in the show
Oh yeah.
notes, everyone. So you
I'm
can.
also on Goodreads. Yeah, I always forget Goodreads. Yeah, but yeah,
I'm the same way. It's like I'm on there all the time. That's where I do my first review is always on Goodreads, and I copy it over to the other places. But I always forget to say that later on.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, I have this habit of not selling my book or not pushing a specific website. I don't know why, but that happens. So yeah, my book is on Amazon. You can find it, under my name, Signs of the End, Chaos Storm. You can. There's a big pyramid picture in the on the book cover. I hope you're gonna share it. I think it's a pretty cool cover. We worked really hard on making it.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
a great cover. Yeah.
no, thank you. Yeah, it was not easy to do. Shout out to my friend Muhammad Ali, who basically made it, from scratch. Who is not actually a cover artist, but he's an architect and interior design specialist, and more importantly, he's a wizard when it comes to 3D graphics and stuff like that. And we built the cover. I just gave him a vision, and he built it from ground up. He was amazing.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, the everybody listening, if you're listening on whether it's I don't know, Apple or Pandora or whatever, you can also go and find the book cover on other places like YouTube, um, Audible, where the show is also on. The book cover is being shared everywhere, plus on the Sample Chapter Podcast website too. You can see that there. Of course, best thing for you to do is just click that link right over to Amazon and pick up the book for yourself so that you can see the book every time you open it up. So do that for yourself, people. Click that link
Yep.
in the show notes.
Pick up the book. I'm pretty sure that you're going to enjoy it. It's a very enjoyable story and it's easy to tell. It's overly sophisticated and it's not overly simplistic. It's a middle ground that I think. I have a friend who's reading it to his children, so he was able to enjoy it for himself, and then he was able to enjoy it with his kids. So, yeah.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Tarek, this has been great. Thank you so much for reaching out, and thank you so much for your time today. I really have had a really good time talking with you, and man, I wish you all the best with your book and the future books in the series.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you very much for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I appreciate you and your hospitality. And I hope to get to speak to you again.
Absolutely. Likewise. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, time for me to step aside and hand the floor over to my guest. And let's hope I don't mess up the name here. Tarek Badr and his debut novel, Chaos Storm.
Prologue. Magia stumbled over the broken body of a fused. He was tired and bleeding, but could not spare a moment to rest as another fused approached him. Shaped like a human, but made entirely of stone, the fused were the stuff of nightmares. The one that approached was at least 8 feet tall. Chaos ran through its veins, and its eyes burned the deep orange of chaos. Magia stretched out his hand, and red light coalesced into a massive double-bladed axe. He charged the fused and sliced through its right leg. Iron would fail to leave a scratch on the hard stone of the fused, but his axe was of no metal. It was pure power. It cut through the fused like a hot knife through butter. The fused screeched and fell to the ground. It tried to grab Magius as it fell, but he avoided the claw-like hand and cut the beast's head off. The burning eyes winked out. Horns continued to blow in the distance. Even leagues away, the sounds of battle reached him. "What have we done?" he said as he looked toward the horizon. Smoke rose from the ancient city of Raylander. At the center of the city, the pyramid that once filled the world with radiant red light stood dark, dead. The sands shifted beneath him, and he turned to see another. It jumped the distance between them and was about to crash into Magius when a bolt of red light hit the creature midair. The hit sent the fused to Magius' side, where he made quick work of the fallen beast. He turned to the source of the bolt and saw his wife, Lysa. He made his way toward her while the storm raged. He hoped the dust and howling winds could hide them as they ran for their lives. Lysa carried a precious bundle, a little boy. Their companions were all but lost to them. Some have died, others stayed, and the most unfortunate souls were caught by their enemy. In a few moments, the storms would carry more than dust and stone. It would carry chaos, the bane of existence. Magius grabbed his wife and urged her onwards. They were a few steps behind what's left of their groups, and he did not wish to lose sight of them. Screams of pain echoed around them as their dark hunter preyed on their friends. He turned to his wife, looking troubled. "It's no use, Lysa. He's coming for us. This is pointless." She shook her head. "We have to keep going, Magius. For the boy. For everyone." "He will not stop until he kills us, my love," Magius said. "We have to save him," Lysa said. She was as beautiful as the day he met her, flowing blonde hair and beautiful blue eyes. Magius looked around desperately. He reached into his bag and shook his head. "Even if we can escape, Lysa, we don't have enough power to shield ourselves for long. The storm is coming, and it's going to last for at least a day or two." Lysa's golden hair fell onto her face, hiding her eyes and her tears. "What if we give them our stones, Magius?" she said. He did not stop, but his steps slowed. She looked at her husband sympathetically. The once mighty Magius now looked deflated, as if her words punched all the air out of him. He had retained his regal look and his muscular physique through the years. Since the moment she met him, he was a paragon of strength. At this moment, however, he looked tired, defeated. "All right," he said, and took her hand. They started running toward the group ahead. "Walder!" Magius shouted, but the sound was devoured by the howling gust of wind. "Walder! Titana! Wait! Stop! Please!" Magius said, voice desperate. The huge Walder turned to him, eyes blazing. "No!" he barked, then grabbed Titana and continued onward. Magius and Lysa picked up their pace and started to close the distance. "Walder, you will never make it to the oasis before the chaos hits. You don't have enough stones," Magius said, but Walder ignored him and kept walking. Despite his size, he was older and slower than Magius. The fact that his companion Titana was sick did not help. She leaned on him so heavily he was almost carrying her. Magius finally caught up to Walder and grabbed him. Walder's reaction was so fast that Magius did not have any time to see the punch that hammered his nose and dropped him to the sand on his back. "I don't want anything to do with you. This is all your fault," Walder screamed. Magius nodded and climbed to his feet, one hand covering his broken nose. "It's gone, all of it. The city, our people, and our lives. It's all your fault." "Yes, this is all my fault. I did this. I killed us all. But now I am trying to save you," Magius said and showed Walder his bag and the stones inside it. Walder looked surprised and confused. "What? Why are you doing this?" A detonation shook the ground under them, and the sounds of screaming came from a source not far behind him. Magius stepped up to Walder and Titana. "He's coming for us. He will not stop until he gets us. We can distract him and lure him away from you." Lysa nodded quickly and added, "Yes, get as far as you can, and when the storm hits, you can use all the stones to shield the three of you from chaos." Walder looked at Lysa and then Magius. His eyes fell on the sleeping boy. "The three of us?" he asked and stepped back. "I won't take the boy, not even to save my life." Lysa dropped to her knees and clutched Titana's robes. "Please, he is just a boy. I am begging you. He has done nothing. He deserves to live." Titana looked to Walder, a question in her eyes. "Not to save your life, Walder, but hers," Magius shouted. "A life for a life. You save the boy and save Titana, or we all die. Make your choice now, because he is coming." Walder seemed disgusted. He spat at Magius's face and grumbled through gritted teeth. "I hate you. I hope you rot in the deepest hell this world has. I curse your name and I curse your life." He reached out his hand. "Give me the boy." Lysa held the boy tight to her chest. She kissed him gently on his forehead and whispered softly, "Art, I love you. I love you." Her voice shook and tears rolled down her cheeks. Magius kneeled and put his arms around her. "It's time, my love. Goodbye, Art. Our hopes go with you," he said, and took off his ring and placed it in the boy's hand. He pulled Lysa's finger, and together they touched the ring. A small light shone from the red stone on the ring, then faded quickly. Lysa kissed him again and whispered, "You can save them, Art. We will save you so that you can save them all." She walked up to Titana and placed the boy in her arms. "Promise me that no harm will come to him," Lysa said, weeping. Titana nodded. "I promise." Magius held out his bag to Walder. "Inside, you will find a shield and a few useful things I brought with me." Walder reached to take the bag, but Magius pulled it away. "I also picked up the codex. When he is old enough, tell him who he is. Give him the codex so that he may understand what we have done and what he has to do." Walder snatched the bag from Magius, wrinkling his nose at him. Forget about the oasis. It will be the first place they attack after we fall. Make your way north, to Darken Valley, Magius said. Walder slung the bag over his shoulder, took Titana's hand, and walked away without another word. He did, however, walk north. Lysa fell to her knees weeping, while Magius embraced her for a silent moment. His lovely wife, the most beautiful woman in the world. He had promised to protect her against anything, but he failed. Perhaps then death is not such a bad thing. Come, my love. He helped her up gently, and together they started walking southeast. They walked in silence, broken only by the wind, mixed with Lysa's weeping. Magius was lost in thought. The past haunted him. Mistakes. So many mistakes. How many lives were lost today because of him? How many lives were ruined because of his choices and his plans? Magius Gold Crown, supreme prime of Raylander, leader, warrior, visionary, chosen. Given the holy gift of prophecy, and look where he was now, running aimlessly, waiting to die. I hope we did the right thing. Tired, so tired. How long have we walked? Far enough? What is this noise I hear? In the endless desert of Uratan, Magius and Lysa wandered haphazardly. They walked until they could no longer walk. Then they sat on a rock. Lysa cried. She cried until she could no longer cry. They sat in silence, husband and wife wrapped in each other's arms, waiting, wondering what will kill them first. Chaos? The fused? Without power stones they were defenseless, or would it be? A man dressed all in black stepped upon a sand dune. He was covered in blood, blood of friends. His face was hidden, but they knew it well. Where he went, death followed. He walked toward them, sword held in his right hand. His left hand glowed with the ominous orange of chaos. Magius, the architect of my torture. Gold Crown himself running away like a coward, the man in black said, his voice eerie and snake-like. Lysa, the biggest traitor this world has ever seen, he said, then raised his hands toward them. Where is the star? Where is the suit? The man in black asked. Gone. Buried in the vast sea of sand. You will never find them, Magius said. Lies, he growled, and power flared from his left hand. You have failed. You will never be a god, Lysa said. You could have been exalted among us. You were supposed to be the best of us. You are the traitor. The man in black stood silent, his hand glowing dangerously. I never wanted to be a god, but I have to. Only I can save humanity, he said. Well, you failed. You will never have the star, Magius said. There are other ways, the man said and pointed his hand at them. Laughter, a dreadful voice. Magius held his wife and whispered, Close your eyes, I love you. They did not see the man open his hand. They did not see chaos issuing from his hand.
Hey, what did I tell you, huh? That was Tarek Badr reading a sample chapter from his debut novel, Chaos Storm. The book is available right now. You can click that link in the show notes for the book and for everywhere to find and follow Tarek. So click that link down there. Don't forget to also check out our sponsors and podcast friends alike and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out next week when I'm back with a writing duo of Tracy Dobmeyer and Wendy Katzman and their debut novel, Girls with Bright Futures. Hit that subscribe button and we'll see you then. Take care, everybody.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.